July 20-something, 2022. I made the worst mistake of my life. Well, actually, the worst mistake of my life would probably be the decision to make this senior project, but this first mistake was the catalyst that caused me to make this senior project, so shut up and listen to my tragic backstory. Now, I had recently turned 16, which meant that I was now able to drive. Except my mom didn't want me to get my license until I got a job so I could help pay for car insurance. So I went job searching and found a job as a Dairy Queen crew member. It sucked. They always put me on night shift and I usually didn't get home until around 11 because of cleanup. Also, I have social anxiety and I was always having to talk to people, which I mean that was kind of the point of me getting a job as customer service so I could get over it, but it still sucked and I experienced several panic attacks while working there. Anyways, working from 5 to 11 for 3 to 4 days a week for a year was starting to cause me some mental distress, so as a way to cope with the slowly crushing realization that we live in a society, I started viewing the job as if it was a bit of a video game, i.e. I'd refer to different jobs like washing dishes or sweeping the floors as dishwashing stress or sweep stress. This didn't really help me with the exercise dread, it just helped to pass the time. Fast forward to August 2023, I ended up quitting mainly because I'm taking 3 AP classes this year, and if I had to deal with working at Dairy Queen and whatever the hell AP Lang is, I would have probably attempted to assassinate Ronald McDonald or something like that. But that got me thinking, hey, I'm about to be a senior, and I have over 1,000 hours in RPG Maker MV, so why don't I turn my diluted coping mechanisms into an overcooked-ass game based around planning and efficiency for my senior project?
Hello, this is a message to all future people. Do not...
And so it was decided I would base my senior project off of the Dairy Queen employee experience. I mean, it was either this or a game about an old man in a fedora and an eye patch going on the most meta journey ever to discover the meaning of the void, so clearly I chose the worst option. There's a reason why most people say don't make a video game for your senior project. That is an absolutely god-awful idea because you have a limited amount of time to make the project, and the video game requires art, coding, music, game theory, and a bunch of other assets that you cannot realistically finish in the span of a few months. Alas, I am an idiot! And also, I didn't feel like trying to come up with something that wasn't a video game, so I got to work. And by get to work, I mean I spent the first 3 weeks not working on the game outside of the planning document. But hey, a late start doesn't mean I can't speed it up, so on week 4, I created an RPG Maker MV project for the game, now titled Min-Max Wages. Side note, I understand that min-maxing has absolutely nothing to do with the game's main gameplay loop of multitasking and speed. I just thought it'd be like a fun... I thought it would sound like a fun name because, you know, minimum wage, min-maxing. It's a very clever name, okay? Trust me. In about an hour, I whipped up a quick placeholder map, started figuring out the different variables I need for the ice cream objects, and created a little spreadsheet guide because I wanted to use IDs for the different attributes rather than strings. It's just more convenient, you know? I also made a little song using soundtrap loops that I think would fit well into the game. I was a bit busy the next week with some other personal projects of mine, though one of them was also an RPG Maker MV, a little game called Hang Out with a Neko Girl. Truly, the least sus game name of them all. In the game, there's an optional dungeon where you have to solve some puzzles using objects, which required me to make some sort of hand system where you could hold different objects, which is what I had worked on this week. So, one could say this technically counts as prototyping for Min-Max Wages' hand system, and would also count towards my 15 required logged hours. Still, it wasn't technically work on the main game, so after that, it was clear what my next course of action would be. I didn't work on the project at all for an entire month. There were a few reasons why I didn't work on the project. Number 1, RPG Maker is dumb and stupid, and events are dumb and stupid, and creating the ice cream system just wasn't going to work. I needed to create an ice cream object with different attributes that could change for the player to pick up, not to mention that I needed to count for multiple ice cream objects, and RPG Maker just didn't have the functionality to do that easily. Number 2, I just didn't want to do it. The massive size of the project and what I wanted to do with it was really beginning to dawn on me, from having to figure out ice cream objects, to coworker AI, to figuring out the ranking system. It all just felt like a massive hurdle, and I just couldn't bring myself to overcome it. So, the project stayed there, frozen, as the deadline slowly creeped in. And suddenly, the saving grace of the project arrived. That's right. It's the Panic Monster, baby! Let's go Panic Monster! We stand Panic Monster in the sun! Wow! So yeah, middle of December, I realized that the unimpeded march of time had come to swallow me whole, with the project needing to be in a nearly finished state within a month and a half, and I finally got to work. But RPG Maker MV's limited capabilities would surely take too long to get around, right? So, what could I do? There was another option. One that I had considered, but hadn't felt that it would be the right one. The Unity game engine. There were several reasons why I was reluctant to use it. Number 1, I don't have that much experience with it. Like I said, I have over 1,000 hours in RPG Maker MV. It's what I'm comfortable with. Meanwhile, with Unity, I've only made a few incomplete game projects and a single rage game platformer that I made for my AP Computer Science class last year, a genre completely isolated from a multitasking time-based game. Number 2, the novelty. See, making a Diner-Dash-esque game in Unity sounds pretty normal. Making a Diner-Dash-esque game in RPG Maker, an engine designed solely for RPGs, that's the dumbest thing that has ever been uttered in the history of words. And that's kind of why I wanted to use RPG Maker MV, because it would be more of a challenge while still feeling more comfortable. So anyways, the Panic Monster said, "F your feelings, learn how to use Unity, you procrastinating, fatherless, short, dumb, unfunny, ignorant, stupid, idiotic, incompetent, incapable, hapless, unknowledgeable, uncultured, unintelligent, uneducated, simple-minded, foolish, half-witted, dumb, moronic, thick-skulled, dim, WP brain, daft, genius!" And so I spent an hour transferring the project into Unity. This process was actually pretty short, seeing how what I had done for the project currently was, nothing, and Squarp. And so, it was time to actually work on the game itself. Well, actually, I didn't work on the game for the rest of the year, but that's a minor inconvenience. With 1 month left to get the project in a working state, the race was on. January 6th, I got to work on the ice cream object creation. I had a bit of this done already from December, however, it was buggy, to say the least. So I fixed the hitbox for the machine, made it so the object would now parent to the player, and also added a little highlight to make it easier to see where hit detection activated. January 10th, ice cream objects now have a container attribute which can be chosen when first creating it through the container machine, which also has a placeholder sprite now, the code of which could be built upon to make the rest of the attributes pretty easily. January 12th, there's an ice cream machine now with chocolate, vanilla, and swirl, which you can only use when you have an empty ice cream object in your hand, the cupboard also being no longer interactable once you have an object in hand. I also created a fun little placeholder sprite that gets parented to your ice cream that shows which flavor is in there. Prior to this day, the hand system used a unique ID for each ice cream object, however, I realized that this was dumb and stupid because this is object-related programming, so I changed it so that your hand now holds an instance of the ice cream object instead. Also, collisions were fixed again. January 16th, it's time for toppings, except toppings are going to be hard to visualize, which means it's also time for UI. Can't wait for this to not work at all and make me cry. It took me an hour, but UI now works, with the amount of topping slots you have changing based on the container. Also, I worked on a little menu which customers will eventually be able to order from, though this hadn't been implemented yet. January 23, oh yeah, my captain class is only a semester long and is ending, and apparently the project is supposed to be close to finish, so I can showcase it even though I've only got like coverage in the game. So I made a quick Google slideshow to showcase everything, and oh, apparently it needs to be a video. January 25, I wrote a script for the video, which was actually everything you just saw from Act 1 to January 16, and then spent the next 2 days straight editing together a 9-minute long video, explaining my whole process when the video was supposed to be closer to 5 minutes long. February 2nd. Art. Look at this. This looks nice, doesn't it? Anyways, I ended up having to make an actual name and logo for the restaurant since, well, I couldn't just use Dairy Queen. And after mulling over it for a good bit, I came up with the name Lactose Empress. Get it? Because dairy, lactose. Anyways, here's the logo I made. The Dairy Queen logo sports a pair of lips in it, which I took to mean it representing Dairy Queen's lies and deceit. See, Dairy Queen has this whole thing where they call their food fan food rather than fast food. But this is a complete lie because there's no such thing as fan food because fans are inedible. Lactose Empress's logo, on the other hand, uses its initials to instill the iconography of an eye, representing the truth, and how Lactose Empress will never lie. This is most present in Lactose Empress's slogan, "Don't eat here if you're lactose intolerant or you will die." So yeah, pretty cool logo, cool colors, cool imagery. Wonder what's next. So, customers. This was one of the most painful things I've ever had to create. See, customers have two different stats, aggro and complexity. Aggro is basically just how fast they get impatient, which wasn't really that hard to implement. However, complexity is different in that higher complexities mean the customer will order more complex items. The complexity scale goes from cones to sundaes to cup blend things. I can't use the name closer for it. Can I? However, that isn't the only aspect of complexity because I actually hate myself. Here's how it works. The customer with complexity 1 will always order either a cone or a sundae, so nothing too fancy there. Complexity 2 is a bit more interesting, in that customers can order any of the 3 types. However, if a complexity 2 customer orders a sundae, rather than just ordering off of the sundae menu, they will also order it with an additional extra topping. Complexity 3 gets it even more complex, in that they can only order cups. However, the cups will either have 1 or 2 random toppings added, or have 1 topping removed. Now, what does this mean? Not much, it just meant that I had to create an algorithm that would randomize aggro and complexity, then randomize the type of ice cream based on the complexity stat, then randomize what menu item that ice cream item derives from. Then if the complexity is 2 for Sunday, randomize the topping to add, or if the complexity is 3, randomize whether or not to add it or remove a topping, then randomize which topping to add, remove, or add. And that's just to set up the customer. Afterwards, the customer needs an algorithm that compares the ice cream in the player's hand to the customer's order, which requires comparing the type, the flavor, and the toppings, which have a possibility to be ordered differently than the way the order stores it as, or the possibility to have repeat toppings, both of which require an extra algorithm to properly compare without short-circuiting, all before adding the total score of the order to the player's score. So anyway, it's February 6th and March 1st. Ignore the month-long gap between those two. I spent 2 hours in total writing pseudocode for the algorithms needed for these processes because I had absolutely no clue how to even begin to visualize what the hell those last 2 paragraphs were. March 10th, I spent 2 hours straight implementing the code into the game, which included creating another stat for customers called patience points, which is essentially your score for that order that takes into account what you got wrong and how long it took you to get the ice cream to it. March 28th, it turns out the algorithm is absolutely fucking broken in regards to repeat toppings. God damn it! So I fixed that and added a trash can to represent how this whole project is an absolute dumpster fire at this point. So I spent the next hour making this! See, I wanted a visual representation to help players realize what a customer's stats were at a glance, but for some reason I thought it would be a good use of my time to give each and every single one of them a stupid, dumb caption that represents their attitude and personality. Sure! Oh, and yeah, I only have 2 months left to finish this goddamn game! So I wrote down the last vital mechanic needed for this game to be, well, an actual functioning game. This includes figuring out how the hell to create a line of customers both the drive-thru and the counter, which have different mechanics in how they work, creating counters for the player to place down their ice cream, a milk property for the ice cream, a dining room for the customers to go sit in, a touch screen to help players keep track of what orders they need to make, a call feature to allow players who can memorize counter customers' order numbers to call the customer over rather than walking the order out, and a feature to allow players to store any extra ice cream that they happen to make. Wonderful. Surely we can accomplish all that in 2 months, right? April. Just April. I didn't work on this game at all, and now I only have 1 month to finish all these goddamn mechanics. Fan-fucking-tastic. The only way this could get any worse would be I have 10 days to finish the project! What the f*** is wrong with me? Okay, here's the plan. Make sure to scrub those cutters about 2 hours straight, adding counters, jumping coincidentally with the old system with the order viewpoint, trying a customer and a container, adding a display score, and adjusting pages in terms of losing too many points on an order will eventually lead to being immediately deducted from your current score rather than your repetitive score, to prevent players from just working on one customer's order. Big routine, flip through ritual parmesan's head to instead of trying to finish that task quickly to get the lowest time possible. You're now trying to gain as many points possible in the span of 3 minutes. And then after that, spend the next 5 hours straight, yes, you heard me correctly, adding a timer that head into the game when you reach 0, adding in customer dialogue, adding in this counter with 3 customers that cycle when you complete or fail orders, adding in a sign that gives you the menu with each hail recipe, adding an exit door that lets you quit the game, finalizing the sprites for the shopping icons, adding a main menu screen that tells you the top 5 high scores, changing the score system to multiply your score by 10 to be a bit more satisfying, and finally, most important of all, adding this f***ing thing. Sound like a good plan? No? F*** you, it's my project, I get to ruin my sleep schedule if I want, thank you very much! So I guess that does sound like a bit much to do in the span of 2 days, perhaps I should try. So anyways, I spent 7 hours total finalizing the game over the span of 2 days. Although it strays heavily from my original vision, being more of an arcade-styled game rather than a time attack game, it's actually pretty fun to play. Every second on the clock counts, but it's incredibly easy to make a mistake, either from you remembering something wrong or by misclicking. It becomes a fun balancing act between double-checking to make sure you've got the order or recipe right, and just relying on your memory to gain the most points possible. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It was fun to delve into the ins and outs of designing and developing a game, and it really just solidified to me how much I want to continue making video games as a career. If you want to go play the game, there might be a link in the description. I'm not sure if YouTube lets me put links in there, but either way, you can also find it at my gameshoulder.io page at TheFuriousLucario. So, the moral of the story. Don't make a video game for your senior project. Why would you ever do that? Don't make a video game for your senior project. That is an absolutely god-awful idea because you have a limited amount of time to make your project. The video game requires art, coding, music, game theory, and a bunch of other assets that you cannot realistically fix in the span of a few months. Don't make a video game for your senior project. Did you not watch the fucking video? Don't make a video game for your senior project. This is a terrible idea. Don't make a video game for your senior project. Don't be like me. Witness and indulge in my severing non-vegan and do not repeat thy mistakes. I made a video game for my senior project, and I'm telling you now, don't make a video game for your senior project. I nearly lost my sanity working on this. Don't make a video game for your senior project. Mom, should they make a video game for their senior project?
Don't make a game for your senior project.
Almond, should they make a video game for their senior project?
Don't make a video game for your senior project.
Peanut, should they make a video game for their senior project? Dad, should they... Oh wait, I don't have one. My overly massive collection of plushies, should they make a video game for the senior project? In conclusion, don't make a video game for the senior project! Good night, gamers!